I'm Mr. Creepy, and you're never gonna believe what just happened. I just time traveled for about an hour back to 1984 to visit my 18-year-old semi-religious self. Younger me was really excited about going to the senior ball with a doll named Connie, and he was really eager to know if it was okay if he kissed her. I let him know straight up that it's okay, and even if things don't go well, you could always build on past experiences, and therefore trying new things is part of the process that'll make you mature into a better person going forward. I was then zapped back into the present day, driving to Thunder Valley Casino in Northern California for today's main event. In the present day, I made a commitment to play higher buy-in tournaments and refine my strategy to play more by my gut feeling than the cards I'm holding. I sat at my opening table $1,100 light in the pocket and nearly an hour late. In the present, my 6-month learning curve as a storyteller, poker vlogger, and video editor was getting pretty noticeable. And even though it was a very small sample size, so were my tournament results while vlogging. When I watch this video 20 years from now, I'm going to know that Grandpa might not remember your name. But back for a stretch in May 2024 on the tournament table of D-Gens, he was a pretty tough beat. Hey, it's Mr. Irrelevant. We're on first break. I didn't play very many hands, except the first one. I had 5-6 of spades in the big blind, lucky me. The flop was 2-3 of spades and a 9 of something else. So I had a straight flush draw, like as soon as I sat down. I hit the flush and called the river bet. So I chipped up and then I chipped down. Started at 30,000, I'm at 31,000, give or take. 31,000 going into level 4. Time for Mr. Creepy versus Traditional Tournament GTO. We'll be coming back to this several times throughout this video. With a 60,000 tournament chip stack and blinds 300-600, action folds to you in middle position pre-flop and you get pocket aces. You bet 3 times the big blind as to disguise the strength of your hand, and only the big blind calls to defend. The flop shows Jack 4-2 rainbow, and the big blind shoves all in for approximately 30,000 tournament chips. What do? Do you A, make the call knowing that your opponent needs to have hit at least 2 pair to beat you, or B, make a good laydown knowing your opponent wouldn't be shoving all in with a hand you can beat? Going back in time to 2017, I started trying new things and taking notes on my tournament results. And a year later, I came to a definite conclusion that the correct answer is neither A nor B, but rather C. I don't know. In initially disguising the strength of your hand pre-flop, you have now unintentionally also disguised the strength of your opponent's hand. Now you can only play a guessing game that you may or may not win. If you call and your aces are beat, you'll chalk your loss up to variance, and you'll be wrong. If you choose to fold your aces and correctly make a good laydown, you'll feel good about yourself only losing 3 big blinds. But the fact of the matter is, you just lost 3 big blinds with pocket aces. The creepy way is as follows. Look around the table and find the short stack. If half his stack size is less than 20% of your stack, bet half his stack, keeping action open for your re-raise should he go all in. If half the short stack is more than 20% of your stack, bet 20%. Here's why. Just because you have aces doesn't mean your opponent doesn't have a hand they can't fold. Whether your opponent thinks that hand is pocket 7s or ace king or pocket queens is not for you to decide, but what it does do is open up the opportunity for your opponent to make a mistake. Why 20%? In, for example, an aces versus 10s situation, there's a 12.5% chance your opponent is going to hit a set on the flop. With the understanding that there is the same chance you will also flop a set, he has around an 11% chance of outflopping you. You've just had your opponent invest 20% of his stack on an 11% chance of winning, and with this betting strategy pre-flop, you should always shove the flop. Throughout my extensive studies, I found that Mr. Creepy has never lost a hand when all his opponents have folded. And if winning 2.5 big blinds is the worst case scenario when I have pocket aces, I'll take it. I've made a final table with less. In practice, I get a lot of, 33 big blinds pre-flop is a bit much, you think? And then I find that player making fun of me, shoving a couple hours later with much worse because he got short. Variance. Levels 4 through 6, it's good when it deck hits you in the face, it's bad when it doesn't. I came back from first break with 31,000. I was down to 30, picked up pocket deuces. The blinds were, I believe, 3-5. Button raised to 1,400. Small blind came along. I came along with my pocket deuces. I flopped a set. Deuce 4 jack. It went check, check. And the button bet 2,100. I went call, call, which a little scary. The turn was a 3, making it 2, 3, 4 jack. Went check, check, 11,000. Call and back to me, and I had bottom set with a whole bunch of stuff that could beat me. I called with it for 11,000. Still thought I was probably ahead, but really scary. The river paired the board with a 3, and it went check from the small blind, small stack, check from me, and the button went all in. The small blind insta-called, and I audibly said, this can't be good for me. I know you have pocket jacks. I made the call, and the button had ace jack for top. Small blind sucked out on us both on the turn with 5-6, and I sucked out on everybody. Well, I sucked out on the small blind on the river with a full house. So I was up to 90,000 at one point. And then I got pocket queens. I checked the small stack of the table and bet a third of his stack, which I believe was 8,000 at the time. And he made the call. And the flop was 9 high. I believe it was 7, 8, 9. And he checked dark, and with my pocket queens, I went all in dark. And he called me with a set of 9s. So, hey, once it worked out for me, once it didn't. At one point, I was back down to 60. Worked my way back up. The guy that won with a set of 9s, it was a really small stack. I'm looking over at his stack now. He's got like 160, so he's doing pretty well. I've got 93, and the last hand of note that helped me get where I am, I had pocket queens again, and I raised to 1/3 of whatever the small stack of the table was. In this case, it was 7,500. And the guy to my left, not the small stack, I think he had 35,000. He had ace-king suited. He went all in. It came back to me. I made an insta-call. We both missed. And I'm sitting here at 84, somewhere around there. So pretty good. Average stack 56, just under 57. Hope to make it to day 2. A couple things to note. First of all, my younger self did kiss the girl. No, she wasn't the romantic end all for me, and I wasn't for her either. We still keep in touch. Even now, though, you know, if I never kissed her, maybe I wouldn't have ever kissed anyone, and I'd be walking around when I was 40 wondering how to kiss a girl. Instead, I'm married, got a son and daughter, and a beautiful wife named Mrs. Creepy, Lizette. Thanks, Connie. By the way, Connie's got a son and a daughter of her own. Secondly, the pocket 9s guy, I just told you he went on a heater, and we'd be at the same table in 5 hours when security stepped in. Okay, so Act 3 is done. Round 3 is done. Levels 7, 8, and 9 are done. I probably put up a graphic that you can see. I have 108,000 chips. I think the average is like 95. There's 44 people left. 18 make the money. And 14 make day 2. I am burnt out. I've got a splitting headache. Probably the reason is it's an hour-and-a-half drive for me to get here. And I played a tournament and made day 2 on Thursday, a different tournament. So I drove an hour-and-a-half, played the whole tournament, drove back, came back on Friday, drove an hour-and-a-half, played a couple hours, lost, drove back home. And this is my 3rd day driving here, and I'm 6 hours deep into the tournament. I wrote on my notes something that I should be aware of. I have what I like to call an expiry date, and that's at about 6.5 to 7 hours. I just don't play optimally. I start playing stupid, and we're right there right now. So I'm aware of that, and I'm going to try and not do that sort of thing. Hands that I can go over in the last 3 levels. I believe in level 8, when the blinds were 600, 1,200, I got blind versus blind. And there's a guy on my left who I'd been bluffing a lot, and I decided to bluff him again. I had any two cards, and I made it 20,000 to go, and he thought about it, and he moved all in for 65,000, and of course, you know, any two, I folded. And then the very next hand, a friend of mine, Cole Chait, he was short stacked for about the same amount. He was short stacked for 18,000 chips, and he moved all in, and I was on the button with pocket tens, and I called him and got my money back in a weird way. I chipped, the table broke. I moved to a new table. I chipped up by bluffing a few times. So again, 108,000, average probably 95. I'm thinking right now I'm about 15th place or so. So wish me luck. Cross your fingers. Creepy out. So we just completed level 12, round 4, act 4. And the hand before the break, I picked up pocket kings and was up against pocket kings. I flopped a royal flush draw and missed. Might have been a straight flush draw, not a royal flush draw. A few hands before that, the blinds were 1,500, 3,000. I was the small blind with 1,500 in. Somebody made it 7,000 to go, and I called with king, jack of spade. The flop was 9, queen of spades, and some garbage, let's say 4 clubs, something like that. So I let out for 7,000. Both of them called. So we had a pretty big pot, 42,000 at the time, plus the other guy, so 44,000 pot. And I have a gut shot straight flush draw. The turn was a 10 of hearts, so I hit the nuts with a draw to the nuts. So I let out for 49K, which is a little bit above pot, and trying to make everyone else think I was bluffing. And the under the gun plus 2, who was the original raiser, thought about it for a whole long time and folded. The next guy folded, said, hey, nice bet. I told him, you know, it was a lousy bet because you folded. Maybe next time I'll check raise that. So I have 216,000, which is an exact double up. You can see it. The average stack is 171, 250. There's 24 people left. 18 make the money. 14 move on. I'm in really good shape. Keep your fingers crossed. Talk to you soon. We've been playing all day and all night in this tournament, and out of nowhere at around 11 p.m., something happened I'd never seen before. I was in a hand when all of a sudden the double doors near the tournament desk burst open, and a bunch of armed security guards with bulletproof vests and probably guns surrounding a few black guys walked swiftly past us. We're all wondering, like, what happened? Did someone get shot? The poker room at Thunder Valley is really big, as is the whole casino, and the guards made it quickly to the other side of the very large room, and our tournament director says, is that boys to... Yeah, that's boys to men, which leads to the question, why is that boys to men? I was then explained that boys to men were in concert earlier that night, and now they wanted to play poker. So there they were, about 30 yards away, playing a cash game that you could have joined. The moral of that story is that if boys to men are ever performing at a large casino in the future and you'd like to meet them personally, just head on over to the cash games at the poker room. And if that story isn't worth a like and subscribe, I don't know what is. Time. Yeah. Sucks, except I got my EV charged, like all the way. It had 3 miles when I got here, and it's been 10 hours since, so I've probably got a full tank. So, hey, that's great. I was up to, I think, 250,000 chips, and 2 hands in a row. Number 1, I got ace 10, and I limped with it, and the guy to my left, who's rather tight, raised to 20,000, I believe, and I called him, flopped an ace. The blinds were 2-4 at the time. I bet 5, and he raised to 30, and I said, something's odd. So I folded. And then the next hand, I think I was under the gun, and I got pocket jacks, and I made it 8,000, and that same guy to my left flat called me. The guy to my right, who was a pretty big stack, and so was I at the time, he raised to 25, and with my pocket jacks, I took a little time, and I raised to 90, which left me 120 behind. guy to my left in seat 1 folded. The other guy took his time and jammed on me. He jammed for like 350, and I started the hand with somewhere around 210 or so. So I thought about it for a long time. I used all my time chips, and I folded because I had, I would say, 7 or 8 orbits before I get blinded out, and I really wanted to make the money. There was, I think, 23 left at the time, so it was a lock that I was going to make the money before those 2 hands. So I folded, and I had, I would say, 8 orbits left, and I tanked every single hand. They give you 20 seconds pre-flop before you have to make this decision, and I used 20 seconds every hand. I either folded or went all in, and I did survive 7 players. On the last hand before the bubble, there were 2 people at 2 separate tables that were all in. One of them was me, and I doubled up. So bagging 137, they're playing Flight B tomorrow, Sunday. I'll be sleeping, and I'll come back Monday and hopefully ladder up at least once. Thanks for watching. We'll see you for day 2.